this question was asked at an event that I was at a couple weeks ago. It was basically, how do we get back to being able to agree? There's a old saying, and we all know it, united we stand, divided we fall. We have a very divided country. And it's frustrating. This is the one country where people fight to get to. They will save up all their money to leave their homeland to come to America. Why? Because we have been the land of opportunity, to where people could come here, and we've heard all these stories, everybody's heard these stories, where people come here with virtually nothing, work hard, and be able to provide very well for their families. So the question is, what's this? What is this constant fighting? You know, oh, it was Reagan, oh, it was Carter, it was...
No.
Folks, let's stop for a minute and look at, what do we have in common? I think that is one of the biggest issues that we have in this country, is this divisiveness that's going on. Let's stop and talk about what's in common. Most people, would you agree with me, Joe, that everybody should have the chance to define their own success however they want to in this country?
I would agree with that.
Okay, we just agreed. So it's something very easy, right? So we're, you know, now there's something that Joe mentioned a while ago, and I could have taken issue with it, and I let it go because
like what?
I'm not going to bring it up because it's divisive, and we all have our own opinions based upon our own life experiences. But let's talk about first, what do we have in common? Most people, they want to be able to work so they can provide for their families, provide extras to be able to go out and enjoy life, put a roof over their heads, food on their table, to love and be loved. That, we get there, then we can start discussing some of the differences without verbally killing each other and assaulting each other. And I think, to me, that's a big issue in trying to come to more agreements instead of this divisiveness that we have faced so long in this country. And for me, it's very frustrating because, oops, just killed the mic. Sorry, guys, because I see that. So
the question that I have, that I've been working on trying, to get some ideas out about, is, where is this divisiveness coming from?
That's a great question.
And I, before we delve into that, I'd like to add a little postscript on the Carter thing. I see what Jimmy Carter did as leadership, because he knew that he was gonna, it was going to cost him big time, and he did it because it was the right thing. Right. Now, I'm not seeing a lot of that in our political leaders today. I'm not seeing that. In fact, to call them leaders is a misnomer. And so we have, the example that you find in the paper, there's an editorial on it every day, is, for example, who's going to replace Scalia? And should, Obama's got 11 months. He's put out what I think is a very middle of the road, nomination that should be acceptable. And the question is, will people even talk to this person? So we got a leadership thing going in that particular, that's one example. But let's, so we'll come back to that one, but let's talk about this divisiveness. Where is the divisiveness coming from? The
divisiveness, in my opinion, comes from the media. They need to draw blood, so to speak. If they can create discord, and it may come from other places, but the media promotes it very well. If there's discord out there, there's something to talk about. How often do you see good news in the newspaper? How often do you see good news on the TV? We don't that often, and there's a lot of good things that happen. So what's the one commonality that we have? We all hear the news, or it's out there in the airwaves, so to speak.
I see that there's actually a lot of positive stuff in the media. When I read a lot of these stories, it's like, and I think about it. Register Guard's actually a pretty good paper.
Now, see, I don't get the Register Guard.
And it's been improving. A lot of people are complaining about the Oregonian, that it's slid downhill pretty badly. But in my opinion, over the time that I've been in Eugene about 10 years, I've seen the Register Guard, in my opinion, improve.
Good.
It's reporting more stuff. But a lot of what's in there is, happy things.
Good.
You know, they really do have a happy front page. And I'm going, I'd like to see some more world stuff that maybe is not so happy on the front page. But they are definitely going for happy.
Well, and that's a good positive thing that they're doing that.
Yeah.
But traditionally, and that's just how it is. And I see it on the mainstream media when we watch the news at night. Yeah. That they attempt to do a happy story, usually at the trailing end of it.
If the panda was born, there's hope.
Yeah. So so I just think that we need to be able to, one, being politically correct, I think is one of the worst things that's ever happened to this country.
Absolutely.
Folks, I cannot offend you. You can allow me to offend you. I cannot offend you. I cannot do anything to you that you do not allow me to do. And so that's important to say, oh, well, that was so offensive. Well, why? If it's your opinion or it's my opinion based upon our own individual backgrounds or research or whatever it is, why be offended because we came to an opposite conclusion? That's where you have a conversation. Converse with words. Yeah. Let's not use words to kill each other. Let's use words to have open dialogue and conversations where we're not busy trying to tear down each other. And we can do that. And stop being so defensive all the time and just taking everything as an offense. Just yesterday at oh gosh, Joe, you'll probably remember which university it was, but somebody had written "Vote Trump" on the sidewalk. I think it was Cambridge. And some of the students came, oh my gosh, they were sick. And they were just having all the, really, come on, grow up. I'm sorry, grow up. It's a person's name.
Yeah.
And there is no assaulting you on that. You are allowing something. So then go out there and write Bernie or Hillary. Yeah. You know, or Cruz or Santa Claus. If this is really, you know, you've got to learn to grow up out there, because the real world, it isn't all that nice from time to time. So this political correctness and worrying that, oh my gosh, somebody's going to get offended or upset over it, in the words of Joan Rivers, what does she say? Oh, grow up. Yeah. You know, so
I mean, one of the things, and I think you've hit on a big one, is we have a lot of sort of professional victims running around these days.
We do.
I don't know if you follow YouTube stuff much. There's a big thing. I run a program on Wednesday evenings, a live call-in show called That Atheist Show.
Okay.
And so the atheist community in YouTube has been quite active for a while. And there's a lot of sort of what they call social justice warriors, SJWs.
Okay.
No longer means single Jewish woman. But social justice warriors, people who are professionally take offense at all kinds of things for not particularly good reasons. And I find that they're both, you know, there's a lot of them on the left. I mean, a lot of, unfortunately, I think a lot of what is in feminism is really good stuff. I mean, for people who are motivated by making a better world, that's good stuff. But people who are angry, you know, and just offended, you know, all men are rapists and all that kind of stuff that you get, that's social justice warriors. That's political correctness. You can say, okay, well, that's all on the left. But there's a lot of political correctness going on the right, and I actually got nuked by some of it. I've been sitting on the police commission for the last 4 years, and we had a burst of this come on. Some folks didn't like what I said, and they voted in the room that we would never, there's 8 points, and we will never say anything that could potentially offend someone's feelings. And I think that's, you know, that's specifically to shut me up. And so, you know, I'm kind of going through a round of that right now.
Yeah, well, there's
but
this...
that came from the right.
That-
You know,
and-
people
yeah,
complain from the left,
interesting.
people complain from the right.
I guess they're thinking what's good for the goose is good for the gander if the left can do it. But you know,
that gets us. The question is who
it
started it.
It doesn't, and it doesn't make it right. And that's the whole thing. We do in this country. We have our First Amendment, freedom of speech. It doesn't mean that you go around being rude, because we have morals and we know the difference between right and wrong, but do you want to talk about some of the important issues
we could.
besides that?
Well, I mean, I think divisiveness,
it's
divisiveness is huge,
Yeah.
and that's probably a good topic. Let's spend a few more minutes on this.
Sure.
My read of the situation is that following the 1960s, when the ruling class, to a degree, lost control of the society, they reestablished that control with a staggering amount of violence. And also, one of the things that went into it was the Powell letter. I don't know if you're familiar with that. Lewis Powell?
I recognize the name, but I don't recall.
Yeah. Lewis Powell, this is 59 days before Richard Nixon appointed him to the Supreme Court.
Okay.
Wrote a letter to Eugene, who was then the public outreach guru for the U.S. Chamber of Commerce.
Okay.
It's 13 pages long. It's a manifesto, and it basically says, we as the responsible leaders of the society must set aside our differences and pool a staggering amount of money and change the way America thinks about itself. Okay? And since that time, anywhere from $3 to $10 billion a year has flowed into this project. That's where all the corporate think tanks go.
Okay.
The Heritage Foundation, the Cato, you know, the Project for a New American Century. There's about 50 of them with a budget in excess of $10 million a year. And it also bought a lot of media access for these kinds of ideas. And so this is where the money first went into the Christian right. The biggest recipient was Christian radio and Christian television, where people like you know, Pat Robertson and just go down that list.
Right.
Okay, started selling stuff. So you know, the concept of selling Christianity, but then we're also organizing. As part of that, we are going to get Christians to vote as a bloc, and we're going to use abortion as the issue around that. So that's all. But all that money's been followed. Okay, and academia sort of started to figure it out during the 1980s and began to study it. So by the time you got to the mid-90s, corporate America had sort of figured out that we need to hide the money a little better. So now, instead of giving it directly to the think tanks, they now give it to foundations, which give it to the think tanks. So that makes it harder to trace. But a staggering amount of that money went into a lot of right-wing radio. I have a number of friends who were addicted to it, and so I wind up talking to them about this kind of stuff. But I think there's enabling, I think two things have happened. One, there's this concept of enabling stupidity. In other words, Rush Limbaugh's stick, for example, is I'm the most intelligent man in the world. All his academics are all wrong, and if you agree with me, you're intelligent too.
That's marketing.
It is. It's
It's great marketing.
Absolutely.
It works.
And he's making $50 million a year doing it. But he is selling a lot of hate into the society.
Now, see, I'm going to disagree with you on that.
Let's do that.
I actually haven't even listened to Rush this week.
Yeah.
I turn it on at work, and then every time someone walks into the department, I turn off, you know, I'm there to do business, but while I'm sitting there working, some background noise. I see a person who's very frustrated with, again, the divisiveness that's gone on,
Well,
and
creating
working
a lot of it, but yeah.
Oh, I think it gets created on. There's a lot that comes out from both sides.
You're not going to get an easy.
Well, you know,
pass
this
on
is
that one.
this is one of those times where, and I'm generally not a very politically correct person, but I try to be diplomatic.
Yeah.
But I do see a person who's very, very frustrated with different things. Now, can I quote Rush? No, I can't quote him because I hear him, but I don't. Yeah. There's days when I actively listen to him. He was on this morning on my way down, but I was talking to my campaign manager. Yeah. So, but his goal is to bring out different views and different things that are going on out there. And he's going, and I think this is one of the misnomers in media. From my education background, and from what I recall, is that, we'll start with the newspapers because we didn't have electronic media back when, is that people would start their newspapers, the publishers, to publish their views. It was what they thought about whatever the issue was, and they would distribute these, and a competitor would come out and go, well, I don't agree with Ben Franklin, so I'm going to put out I'm going to put out my views.
Right.
And so now you ended up with competing views. Well, somewhere along the line, and I think it was Fox who says fair and balanced. But see, that's a myth, because media was never supposed to be fair and balanced. Now, over the years, it's changed to where we expect that the news media, whether it's ABC or CNN or MSN or Fox, that they're going to give us the unvarnished truth. Wow. No, they're going to give us the version according to how they see whatever it is. And again, because we live in America, we had the First Amendment, the freedom of speech, just like this.
Yep.
We're entitled, I hesitate using that word, but the Constitution gives us that right to the freedom of speech. Right. We all have our own views and opinions, and I think we should respect each other's views and opinions. So that is Rush's views and opinions of how he sees things, and he must resonate out there, because he would not continue to be on the air this many years that he has been on.
Oh, yeah.
And so obviously he's got a big enough following of people to where he's able to get all that. So I think...
and just bring him up as an example.
Yeah,
he is one of many.
Right, and what one person would see as hate, another person doesn't see as hate and divisiveness. What one person is pointing out as, look, this is wrong, and this is why, and this is my view, that to me is perfectly legitimate. Now, if somebody is out there and they're saying, this is what happened, and then we find out, and they knew that what they were saying was not true, now they're being deceptive.
Okay.
Okay.
Climate change. Let's talk climate change.
Okay, climate change.
Okay.
The climate changes.
Is the climate does change.
Climate changes.
Is the climate currently changing as a result of human activity?
No.
Why?
Why? Because if we go back beyond 100 years, you see, the data stops just before...
No, the data does not stop.
Hold on, wait, let me finish. And I've talked to students at OSU that this is what they're studying. The information that the students are given in their textbooks, and what most of us are seeing, that we're seeing pictures of what the glaciers look like prior to this current cycle that we have been in. And look at how all the snow was on these mountains.
Yep.
Now it is all melted. You see, it's a result of all this CO2 that's going into the air. Except if they would go back about 20, 30 years before that and look at some very old pictures, they're going to see very similar types of events. Now, back in the 70s...
time out. You've made a claim.
Okay.
Now you have to provide the evidence.
I have looked it up, and because, folks, I don't know what we're going to talk about. Yeah. You see, I have to... And if I knew we were going to talk about this, I would have had the evidence with me in print, and so I could say,
a lot of it's in print.
Here it is.
I mean, especially